Hi, I'm Dan Droz here at the Zynka 900 Gallery, where we recently had a wonderful opening of my Transformations 2 exhibition of sculpture. It was a great celebration. Thank you to everyone who came. This artist talk is in response to many questions that I've been asked about that exhibition. I originally planned to do an artist talk in person, but because of the current coronavirus issues, I'm going virtual. Thank you for being here and willing to spend a few minutes together. I'll begin with an overview of the exhibition that included over 60 sculptures, including a number of these maquettes or models of sculpture that are used to refine a work before going full scale. Then I'll focus on a few specific pieces to give you an idea of my process and intentions. So most of my work deals with boundaries, particularly the boundaries or the space between a few things. One is 2 and 3 dimensions, so that there's sometimes a confusion about whether something is 2 or 3 dimensional. 2, the gap between what we perceive and what's all there. The important things that are hard to perceive, even though we know are there. So you see the things on the front, but you can't see the things on the back, but you know they're there. And more metaphorically, the gap between who we are and who we want to become. That challenge to be unique without changing the core of who we are. To express these ideas, I use a lot of forms, techniques, and finishes, all incorporating materials and processes that I'm pretty familiar with, usually aluminum sheets or extrusions, linear forms. And I form these by hand without any bending equipment, heat, or welding, just a lot of pushing and pulling. You can see some of the different forms you can get just out of a single sheet. Some of the ideas that are expressed in these maquettes, which are, as I say, small models of sculpture made from a piece of light aluminum sheet that I could cut and fold pretty easily. They start off as a plane, as a panel that I cut and score either with a Dremel tool or a CNC. And then I manipulate the various parts So then I can see how it stands if I need to. So, ta-da. These are, for example, maquettes that are exactly the same form. To me, it's an abstract figure waving goodbye. But with different surface treatments, one highly reflective and the other clearly defining the cut and fold lines, you can see how differently the same form expresses itself just with those different treatments. So in making this larger piece, I began with just a small piece of flashing that I got at Home Depot, and basically with an X-Acto knife cut this into various forms and folded it by hand. You can see that the creases aren't that clean. That gave me a sense of how the whole thing would work, so that I was able to go full scale. It's a lot more difficult, obviously, to fold something it's an 1/8 or 3/16 than it is a piece of flashing, so it definitely took more than 5 minutes. I made numerous maquettes of this one piece. This one, for example, in one color, it doesn't show differences as much as it is a kind of unified form. And so here you have a family that has a lot of similarities. Here you have a real family of forms. By painting the panels different colors, you can see more easily the different forms and their commonalities as well as their differences. And like most sculptures, these relationships change as you view them from different angles or perspectives. Here, for example, let me take off my shoes. We can see the full-scale sculpture. So this is the maquette, this is the full-scale sculpture. Still a few changes once I went full-scale. And as we walk around it, we can see more of the complex relationships between the figures, the nuance of the negative space, while still being able to imagine the original plane from which it came. A larger piece like this, made from a sheet of aluminum, is in contrast to smaller pieces like this that are made not from a sheet, but from a single length of metal rod or bar. Here, almost like drawing in space, we can see a continuous line, understanding that this was once a long bar of aluminum, but with a few twists and turns takes on a much more expressive form that actually changes as you see it from different perspectives. I call this the conversation because you can sort of imagine there are two people here sharing their thoughts, combining their emotions and ideas. Also, the reflective quality of this finish, mirroring both itself and the space around it, kind of blurs the perception of what's the object and what's the space it occupies. Some of those qualities are expressed in a piece like this, the wall pieces. Although quite different, they are obviously expressing some of those same ideas. What is obvious, the front of the piece, is only part of the story and sometimes not even the most important part. The important thing about them all is that there are hidden spaces and surfaces that contain the essence of what the piece is about. Although it's kind of clear that there's as much going on the reverse sides, because clearly these colors are coming from the reverse side. We'll never see them entirely because they're hidden. Everything that is painted on the reverse side we can't see. We know something's there, but we just can't see them. We have to imagine what the back of each panel is like. This piece over here, which I call interior glow, seems to have no color at all. It's just an empty box. But as you look at it, you can begin to discern this faint glow, which is actually a reflection of the fluorescent paint that is painted on the reverse side, which, though completely hidden from view, is one of my favorite, maybe even the most important quality of this piece, that glow from within. Here's a similar idea with a little bit more geometric complexity. It's from a single piece of aluminum where you can see the original plane, though it's a bit harder to imagine. Nothing's added or taken away. And having that glow from within, as you can see here, and also over here, adds an element of mystery and expanding our perception of what is real or there at all. These last two pieces are two of my favorites. In this piece, there's a reference to an actual object, a tabletop with a checkered tablecloth. As an object, though devoid of legs or evidence of use, it has a certain thingness, separating itself from the wall or floor, just floating there. Here, too, there's a bit of mystery. Is this a sculpture? Is it a painting? Or just a picture of a tabletop? Is it flat or a thing? And finally, a piece that blurs many boundaries between beginning and end, physical and organic, and the effect of natural phenomenon like gravity and light. I call this Mobius 1, which is made from a new material I'm experimenting with, a continuous web of wire mesh. In this piece, there's no beginning or end. It just floats in space. So it's obviously a physical object, but suggests those microscopic views of organic life, semi-transparent, where you can see both the inside and the outside, and again, stretches our imagination of what is the object and the space it occupies. So I hope this brief tour and explanation addresses some of the questions you've had about my work and this exhibit. Thank you for joining me to visit the gallery in these uncommon times, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person when we're allowed to get together. If you'd like to receive a catalog of this exhibit with photos of all the pieces and the processes I used to make them, or interested in any particular piece, you can reach me at ddroz, ddroz, @droz.com. Thank you.